Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you how I use the Ruffler to put pleats and ruffles on pages from art journals. I had done a little short clip on Instagram. I think I put it on shorts too. And someone had asked me, could I show a tutorial about how I do it? So I'm going to talk about the Ruffler real quick, and then we'll go over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how I do it. So I'll first start with cutting strips of fabric, and you can use whatever you want to use. These are just some cottons, used by quilters often. This is the cut. I cut these at 1.5 inches. You can play around with the different widths if you want to cut them wider or finer. And then here's some test runs that I did. I'll show you. Now, the reason why I've got the different test runs here to show you is because on this Ruffler, there's a mechanism that moves. And when you put it on the star, it just does straight stitch without doing any pleats or tucks. When you put it on the 12, it gives you 12 stitches and then a tuck. And the 6, you get 6 stitches and then a tuck. And then on the 1, it does a lot. I think it does 12 tucks in an inch, I think. Let's see here. So this is the setting that gives you really gathered up tucks, like super gathered. That is if you set the Ruffler to 1. Then if you set it to 12, you can see they're further spaced out. There's 12 stitches between the tucks. And then here, there's 6 stitches between the tucks. And you can also make it do a straight stitch. So you'll see all that when I'm over at the machine. Yeah, here, the same thing. We've got 12. 1. Yeah, this was me just doing a little practice run, because you want to do that before you try to put them to your paper. You want to make sure you've got your Ruffler working correctly. Now, these Rufflers come in, this is a slant, come on, Deanna, a slant presser foot. They come in low shank, high shank, slant shank. So this slant one would go on my 301. The one I'm going to be sewing on today is a short shank. It fits on my Singer Vintage 201. So if you're like me and you love vintage sewing machines, you probably have a ton of these, because I've never bought a machine that had a box of accessories that didn't have one of these in it. And at first, they can be kind of daunting when you're looking at it. You're like, what in the world? But once you read the manual, figure it out, the fabric goes between these blades, and this moves back and forth. So let me see if I can get it to move. Well, this one might need oiling, which was going to be the next thing I said. We need to oil them because they can get really stiff. This one's really stiff. I haven't used it in a while. There we go. So this moves back and forth. The blades move like this. This little screw here, if you the tighter you put this screw, the more dense your ruffles are, I think is the way to explain that. But this is really where all the action happens, is right here. This is where you move this little lever to set it on the different settings that you want. And then when you go to oil it, you want to get some oil in here in the just find all the moving parts, and that's where you want to oil it, because they can get really stiff, especially if they've been in a box for 50 years and never been used. Okay, so the next step, I'm going to go over to the machine, show you how to use it, and then I'll be back. Go how to attach ruffles to your paper. So I got some strips cut out here, some different patterns on them, just basic cotton. I think these are long enough. You gotta make sure they're long enough because the ruffles eat up a lot. Okay, so I've got this set on the star, and the star just gives you straight stitch. I'm going to put it on the 6 because that gives you 6 stitches in between the ruffles or the pleats, and I kind of like the way that looks. So let's see how that gets. First thing you want to do is you want to get your fabric in there, and then I'll put it on the star just straight stitch and get it in there first. Get it going. Okay, now it's caught. Then the edge that you want to sew the paper, sew the ruffle to, you get that placed underneath the whole mechanism. Notice that the fabric is going in between the feeds, the 2 blades. You want to get the fabric in there. Then you want to put your paper underneath. And then I line up the paper edge with the ruffle edge. Oh, I forgot, I'm still on straight. Okay, let me move it over to 6. Okay, here we go. Okay, since I forgot, when I get closer to this to make that symmetrical, I'm going to put it on the straight, and it won't look like a mistake anymore. There we go. Okay, leave that in there on straight. Get your next piece of paper and your next, I'm going to put this, maybe this gray on this stripe. Okay, so I have paper right there. Get my stripe, my fabric fed into the 2 blades right here. And I'll just go with the straight stitch again to get that going. Get it caught. Sometimes you use a seam ripper to get things in position. There, that's good. And always make sure you get that down because it's really hard to tell when it's up and when it's down with this mechanism on there. And you do not, believe me, take it from my advice, you do not want to make sure, you want to make sure your foot is down because you will get a big nasty mess if you don't. So always double check that. Okay, now from the star to the 6. See, remember to do that this time. I'm just lining up the fabric with the edge of the paper, trying to keep them straight. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to the star. Cut a little bit of this off. Okay, so that one's done with 6 stitches between the tucks. Now, I could do one with 12 to show you what it looks like. So I'll get this, maybe I'll do this stripe. Okay. Wait a minute. I don't have enough. It's not long enough to do 12. I'd have to have a longer strip. But I've got some samples that have the 12 that I can show you what they look like. All right, let's do 12 stitches in between on this one. It's going to be a lot more spread out when you do that, but just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, get this in here. Get my seam ripper again to help me get it in there. Oh, it's not going. Get in there. That's why I like to start a little bit before, because these teeth that grab the fabric can be quite tight. Okay, so now I'm in position. I'm going to go with the 12 stitches in between. Back to the star to go straight, and you can mix around. You can do 12, you can do 6 in between, you can play around with all of that. Now I've got them chain stitched off, so I'm gonna pull these out. And then what I do is I trim everything up, and sometimes I like to press them. I trim everything off with the rotary cutter. So I'm going to go do that now, and then I'll show you what I got when I'm done. Okay, so here's what we got over at the machine. This one has 6, and I just pressed it a little bit and folded it into a signature. You can also cut them. You can have them go like this on a flip, or like a regular signature. Another one with the 6. 6 seems to be my favorite. See if I'm, oh yeah, here's the one where I did the straight stitch because I forgot, and then I did 6 and then the straight stitch again. Actually, I kind of like that. It was a mistake, but now I like it. And then this is some with the 12 and 6. There's a little one. Oh yeah, here's a little one I found that I had. See, this one's the 1. See how dense it is? Really dense. That's kind of fun. And then I cut it in half because I didn't have enough of the strip to go the whole way because it takes a lot. It eats up a lot of fabric when you do that one. So I just made it into a smaller signature. Here's another one like that with the dense setting of 1. So that's how you do it. And you don't just have to use cotton. You can use, any kind of fabric that you can get to run through your ruffler. I did some where I had painted canvas that I did them on, and that turned out pretty good. And the other thing I forgot to say when I was talking about this guy, I was talking about having it on vintage sewing machines. If you are a Bernina owner and you don't want to pay the exorbitant amount of money that they want for one of these rufflers, which is exactly the same mechanism, there's nothing different about it. I just didn't want to, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me, right? You can get a little adapter, and this little low shank adapter fits on the Bernina, and then once you have this on your Bernina, you can use your ruffler. So I thought I'd bring that to your attention if you're not sewing on a vintage sewing machine. Now, newer sewing machines, you can get the rufflers for them as well, but I haven't tried any of those. I've only ever used them on my vintage or on my Bernina 1090S with this adapter. So I can't really speak for the newer machines, like little Genomes and stuff like that. Have no experience with those. But there you have it. So get to ruffling. Happy journaling, people.